Oh, put it away. I'm not even looking at that. That's sent to us like I was thinking examine it.
We're reporting. All right, it is past 7 o'clock and I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Zoning Appeals of Village of Tuxedo Park will hold a public hearing on September 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Village Hall located at 80 Laurelwood Road, Tuxedo Park, New York, to consider the modifications to the original application. Application submitted by Tamer El Reyes, 50 Crow's Nest Road, Tuxedo Park, New York. Tax map number 105-1-8, continuation of the public hearing held on May 7th, 2025, seeking relief from the following sections of the Village Code. Village Code 100-9B, permitted yard intrusions where the deck area cannot exceed 25% of the enclosed ground floor area of the house. The revised plan shows the square footage of the deck to exceed the 25% limit by 1,345 square feet or 80.1%. The Village Code 100-21, driveways where the slope is limited to a maximum spot grade of 10%. The revised plan submitted show a slope of 18%, where prior plans showed a slope of 36%. We have the proof of mailings from the last.
Yes, we did, and I recall there was no opposition to the application at that time.
I guess the applicant would present the changes to the drawings.
Everyone, my name again is Jonathan DeJoy. I'm from the law firm Catania Mann and Ryder. I'm the attorney for Mr. and Mrs. El Reyes. I have with me here tonight David Higgins from Lincoln Tully. As the chairman mentioned, since we last met, we took the board's feedback into consideration and were able to make some pretty considerable changes to the variance request. We added a green roof to what was formerly the all terrace and significantly reduced the slope of the driveway. In light of the changes to the driveway, we've decided that we are going to withdraw our request for an interpretation concerning the driveway. We had previously asked the board to consider whether the driveway could be considered something else, such as just a pathway or something of that nature, but we're going to withdraw that request and just seek the variance instead. Now, with that being said, we're not planning to use the pathway as a driveway for passenger vehicles. It's still going to be used just for walking and equipment, but I just want to be clear that we're withdrawing our interpretation request. So with that, I will let David walk you through the changes.
Here, I'll see if I can point to the map then, that's okay. So as Jonathan just indicated, the changes that we made were to reduce the extent of the variances that were previously requested. Probably best shown on sheet here, I think. So the map that we have up here is, again, the two things is the square footage of the decks and patios, which again, we had previously requested the area of 2,621 additional square feet. That was the portion that had been added. And again, that would be the area in here. And what we were proposing to do is essentially take roughly half of that total area and convert that to a green roof, which would reduce the square footage. of the decks and terrace area from the 2621 square feet down to 1,345 square feet. So the green roof is in this area. That's basically on the top of the structure that's shown here. And then with regards to the grade for the driveway, we've kept the driveway in its current location and showed regrading. So this is a profile of the driveway, and the existing slope is shown here. It goes up and then it comes down at a very steep 36% maximum grade. And so what we're showing is regrading that area while keeping the driveway in essentially the same location and reducing that maximum grade from the 36% down to 18%. So the driveway is shown would be 12-foot wide. We're proposing it to be done with a permeable gravel system. So there's we have details for that. Essentially, there's a grid system. It's modular in terms of the sides of each tile. And then we put a permeable gravel in there. It's anchored to the ground as well. So again, this would be a stable surface. And again, it's just, as Jonathan alluded to, not for full-time driveway access. They have an existing driveway off of Crow's Nest Road, which comes into the site. And so this is essentially where all the passenger vehicles come. This is really for maintenance equipment and that sort of thing. So I know that we added some other information to the plans that was requested at the last meeting. Those were some cross sections we provided on the plan. Those were requested. And I know also with the submission, there was a structural analysis of the garage structure and an elevation view, which I believe I have here too. That was submitted as well. Oh, thank you. Right here. The elevation view of the building itself. So that's what we submitted, and our intention was to try to provide, to this board, what was requested. So we reduced the extent to the variances required and provided the additional information.
One question I would have too is that, when you did the regrade, all right, if you look at the original. If you look at the original, you're saying that you're keeping the driveway or the path in its original location. Why, and I can understand that you have to do some regrading here. I kind of don't see why you need to clear this area and have this area regraded.
So the way it's shown is we maintained a maximum one vertical, 2 horizontal slope from the driveway. And essentially the existing slope is pretty close to that. So as soon as you kind of, cut at the bottom, you've got to chase the grade.
You're cutting here?
I
thought you'd be raising here.
It might be, but either way, we're chasing the grade because it's leaving the driveway at the same, roughly a 2-to-1 slope. So as soon as you modify it, you're chasing that 2-to-1. Now we could potentially make this somewhat steeper and use a stabilization fabric or something and probably catch back up much quicker.
Yeah, I would rather see, because you'd have to clear this area, okay, rather than clearing this area, I would rather see you have a steeper slope there and not clear that area.
So if we went to say like a 1.5-to-1 slope, we could do that and then use a stabilization blanket to stabilize that. That's a possibility, yeah. And that would reduce the footprint of this disturbance.
Other question I have is that you have this area that you put the green roof in, okay? Was there any thought on, maybe taking this part of it, all right, and just making that a little bit bigger? And basically what you're doing is you're taking what the new structure is and you're making a green roof on top of that new structure.
So on the entirety of it, you mean?
Yeah, like you say here.
Let's see.
Which would be, instead of 1,345 feet, that would be 1,968 feet.
You have to discuss that with the applicant. Yeah, that's not something that we.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
All right. But part of it is that the percentage increased because originally you were including the pool and the deck area as part of the enclosed roof, and now that's not. So actually the
Right.
variance becomes a greater percentage. So I was looking potentially to modify that.
Right. Not a problem. Okay.
So just a question I had, and on the driveway piece, I was just a little surprised to hear you're withdrawing the application for us to consider whether it's a driveway or not, because having been to the site, right, it's not a primary driveway, right? Passenger cars are not expected to go up and down that. I would have thought the intent of the zoning rule is to make sure that driveways are safe, and given that it's not a primary driveway, it's not, I was prepared to say it's not a driveway and agree with that. Because I wouldn't want to set a precedent that we're doing something for something that's called a driveway that we would then have to consider for other driveways as well, as opposed to just saying, we acknowledge that there's a primary driveway that used for passenger vehicles, and this would be not constituting a driveway. That may just be a personal thing, but
No, I
at
think,
least that's the way I was thinking about it.
I think they've said that this is not the primary driveway.
Well, no, it's
They're quite
clearly
clear.
not, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and just based on the board's feedback and the changes we were able to make, we thought maybe this was just a more straightforward
Mhm.
approach, but if the board was inclined to grant us such an interpretation, we certainly wouldn't say no.
Did you interpret it as a driveway? John, you did.
Yes.
Do you think it's safe enough, this driveway, for these big vehicles? I don't know quite what they are, but these earth moving things that front end loaders, whatever they are.
If it's not if it's not a driveway and it is basically a construction access road, then, the percentages do increase dramatically. I mean, look what they're doing on
Oh,
South.
because those vehicles
Have more
are,
traction.
yeah, are
Right.
Yeah,
Built
they're
to
more or
withstand
less
those
meant
Yeah.
for this kind of a slope, even without the gravel, I would think.
Yeah, and I think I would, if we do grant a variance, I would want to see, like a roped off section, right, where you have a chain of course that basically says construction vehicles only, and then have it roped off,
Sure.
so no one could drive down it.
So the precedent question is interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you don't consider this a driveway, then what do you consider a path? In other words, somebody else comes to you and they have a similar situation and they're just calling it a path because it's not a driveway. So,
Well, he withdrew
That's
it.
mine.
Are we?
well, he withdrew it,
about
but
now,
then,
Or, because we
So if we
didn't decide
pass-
to talk about it.
Well, if we
Well,
pass a greater grade than what is allowable under the code, are we setting a precedent? And I think what Jake's method is, if you rope it off, that sort of eliminates it as someone interpreting it as a driveway for someone else.
So we are talking about it despite him withdrawing it.
I think the board.
Because we're
brought
saying a
it up.
precedent if it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about setting a precedent, so I would almost rather see it as not with, that you would not withdraw that as an interpretation.
Okay, we would certainly be
I
willing.
personally feel more comfortable that way anyhow.
Okay, yeah, we're happy to continue to put forth that interpretation then.
Then I would suggest that when the board takes up that question, that it defines what a path is versus what a driveway is. In other words, I think John, and you can weigh in here, I think John's gonna need to understand when he looks at a plan, what is a path? What is a driveway? What is the distinction? When does it become a driveway? I mean, this does connect to a road. It's possible to get to the road, but if it's not a driveway, and it's just a path, is it only just a path because it's going to be like roped off?
well, to me, it's not a driveway because there exists a primary driveway already that's been in use. And clearly is not, the end of it is not a residence, it's a storage area. And, just like trucks drive on our property on the lawn to get to places, right? That's certainly not a driveway. Even though they're used every fall and spring when they clean the leaves. So to me, the existence of the current driveway clearly used as one, and the fact that this new path does not end in a residence gives me comfort that it's not a driveway.
It also doesn't end at a public road. It starts at
Right.
the end of his driveway.
Right, exactly, right. It doesn't end up, it starts in there.
And it also doesn't
Yeah, I don't know if
provide,
you've seen it at least, but it just ties into the end of the existing driveway.
Right, I've seen
Yeah.
the plan. I just want to be very careful about if you're going to say this is not a driveway and reverse the building inspector, then I think your determination needs to define what constitutes a driveway, since it's not defined in your code. And I don't
Well,
know.
there are specifications, not just the slope, but the driveway shall be no wider than 14 feet nor no narrower than 8 feet. Most paths that we review are less than 8 feet.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's any slope requirement. If somebody had a path that was 11% or 20%, I don't think I would cite them for that. It may not be comfortable, but that's.
Another thing to think about too, if precedent is a concern, is if the board were to grant the variance, you could always condition it upon the pathway or driveway being used only for off-road vehicles and foot traffic and not passenger vehicles, and also add as a condition the chain or bollard that the chairman was talking about.
and I think another, maybe pretty important aspect about it is that the path doesn't provide access to the primary structure. Primary structure, as you said, is served by an existing driveway that does comply with the village code.
Then that would eliminate the need for the variance altogether, correct? Because it's not a driveway.
If they're determining it's not a driveway, then that's fine.
Then you would only be looking at the one variance.
However, we are conditioning the path, right, with some requirements, all right? We've made him change the grade to it. And now we're asking for a bollard and a gate.
The last meeting, we determined that the original grade was not safe based on any guidelines for the kind of vehicles that are being used on this path or driveway. So that would have been a responsibility that somebody was going to have to own unless some action was taken. Now they're down to 18%, whatever you're calling this. Which is an improvement.
Right.
The other question I would ask is if we would talk before about making the entire structure the green roof. Unless I'm mistaken, that we wouldn't have an increase in the terrace.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
I don't think we need a variance for that either.
Well,
Is that correct?
you are because you're so far over, your existing. Okay, so you're already were non-conforming.
Okay, understood. Okay.
And you're making an assumption that the green roof is a 1-to-1 and how it's calculated.
Yes, I guess that's an interpretation in
Is it?
Well,
terms of.
that was based on Mr. Ledwith's feedback.
I think so.
I don't understand what you mean by 1-to-1. I mean,
We had talked about if it was converted to a green roof, then it wouldn't count against the decks or porches.
even those that were constructed previously. Is that what we're?
No,
talking
just
I
for
about?
was
the-
talking about the new structure,
It's over the,
Okay.
which is
Garage.
the, I forget the square footage, the 2621, the 2,621 square feet. Roughly half of which we were proposing to make a green roof. We were subtracting that square footage from the calculation.
And I guess Charlotte's question is should a green roof be 1-to-1, correct?
right, and I don't see any metrics that, I don't use them myself for that. 80, 90, if you're being generous, given a great deal of information about the specs of the green roof we're talking about. It's only gonna evaporate 35% and use 35% of the water, but we're talking about slowing down water for managing our sewer storm system, right? So it'll slow it down by some amount, but it's not 100%. I mean, the EPA uses 80, I believe.
I mean, that would be up to the building inspector to determine. I mean, our understanding that was anything that was changed from terrace to green roof would no longer be counted as terrace.
Is this a stormwater question anyway? I mean,
Not really.
Not really.
I mean, I mean, yes, you
Fine
can factor
green
it, you
roof,
can
then.
factor in that, but I mean, I would kind of just stick with, if we're replacing with green roof, that it's a 1-to-1.
Based upon what?
Based upon it's a green roof.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
real
terrace.
Not a
serious.
terrace.
It's not a deck.
No, we've never looked at it.
We've never looked at it that way.
No.
so again.
Listen, we've never looked at it.
For precedent, so. If I want to increase, so what you're saying is it's okay if it's, you can go over. As long as you put a green roof on it, is that what? I guess I'm confused because it's not like it's the lawn, right? It's,
Not like the lawn.
Well,
again, I think you need to be real careful about,
So too.
um. You've got a structure, right? It's like in New York City. If the top of the building is a green roof. I guess I don't know what I'm saying here, but
Right,
what I'm
but
trying to
we have-
get to
but we
is,
have
yeah.
nothing in their definitions of, to deal with that at this point in time.
Well, can I just ask, I mean,
Yeah.
the green roof, is there any patio within the green roof, or is there just a narrow path, or is there
There's a
anything?
stone border around the perimeter of it.
That this is
correct, yes.
okay.
but
Or
it's all otherwise all plantings, correct?
Yeah, we haven't done a planting plan, but yes, it presumably would be, either plantings or lawn.
Yeah, it'll be green, whether it's grass or
Mhm.
shrubbery or flowers, but you're not gonna have a patio area within the green roof. Okay,
And so in the
So-
wintertime, what kind of plants are up there? That you could determine that when there's storm and water running in the winter, that it's actually being managed the same way that it is in the spring and the summer. And is that the same amount? Or does it become a roof that's basically an icy roof, impervious? And then you're putting more stress on the village system in the winter. There's lots of questions not answered here.
Well, Dave, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a cohesive stormwater mitigation system for the whole property, right? So,
Well, yes, there was, as part of the original plan, a subsurface detention system that was designed and installed behind the house. I do know that we pointed out on the plan, there was dry well that was installed, that the applicant installed, near the structure that was put in. The atrium, the pool has, roof drainage that goes down to the landscape pond that was installed on the downhill side. The driveway is being converted to a pervious gravel surface. So again, it has a, stone structure that encourages infiltration into the ground. And again, the grass planting or the vegetated green roof would encourage infiltration, slowing down runoff. And I think if you're looking at rainfall in the winter, you'd be looking at whether it was a lawn, it would be iced over in the winter as well. So again, I don't see an adverse condition for this green roof in terms of stormwater runoff. Again, it's encouraging infiltration. So
I think, is it fair to say that even if it was all terrace, which would presumably be the worst case scenario as far as stormwater is concerned, that what's there would be equipped to handle even that?
probably,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
again, there's yes, and again, we're going to be reducing the overall runoff from the site, I believe, with the change from the driveway to a permeable gravel system. So again, that's to encourage infiltration. So that's a sizable area that I didn't run the number, but if I look at the square footage of that driveway, I'm sure it far exceeds that of the area that we're talking about for the green roof.
I also think the green roof, just like the racetrack area, things go dormant in the winter, whether they're on the roof or not, so we've never looked at it that granularity really. So I'm not terribly concerned about things, as long as, once again, we're not gonna have a patio area within, you know, the roof itself, given its size. It could lend itself to that, but that's not what we're looking at here. It's planted in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I don't think so. The only point that I was making was that if we change all that, my understanding based on the numbers that we presented was our increase goes to zero based on the calculation that we did. And again, I don't know.
I'm not quite following that. Is that based on conversation we had earlier in the meeting today, or? Because
So-
you came in asking for what, the 1,200?
Right, 1,245.
From 25 something or other.
Correct.
Based on making a bunch of it a green roof. What's,
Right.
what's changed from that?
So the chairman's suggestion that.
Suggestion, we went now to basically, 1,968 feet if you take
okay.
this piece here.
Okay, because I was gonna say the total I had was 2,621, and I thought that's
Well, I
what you
think
were
the
asking.
2,641 is probably
Some
includes.
additional area, okay.
Probably includes that area here,
I see,
where
okay.
I just took the existing, what the actual structure, and the area above the structure is roughly 2,000 feet.
So you were asking them to increase the size. of the
Right, from
green roof.
from this to that.
So instead of the 1,276 square foot green roof, it would be roughly 2,000 square feet.
Roughly 2,000.
Okay,
So we'd still need a variance that needed, this is a small.
yes, yeah,
Right, because
okay.
your existing was not conforming.
Understood, okay. Yes.
I just ask a question because I want to make sure I understand how this might go forward. So if I can build without a variance, a 2,000 square foot deck, and I do a 2-layer deck, right? Only I put grass up here, then that means I can build more out here. Correct? In other words, if I want to if I want to avoid the variance, I can avoid the variance by building a bigger deck, but putting a roof over part of it and then put grass on the roof. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to anybody but me?
No, I understand where you're going, but I think during the review and the conversation, we would understand is the area under the deck, under the green roof being used for a patio or a terrace or entertainment or something. So we would make that decision at that time.
Covered deck is still a deck.
Yes, yes. And I think also if this application came before us several months ago or actually before it even came to the BZA, but when it went to the VAR, if it came to me with an entire green roof, we might not have even gotten this far or needed to go this far. Because I think the bar, based upon my history with the bar, they would have looked positively on plantings and such. I would not have considered it a deck, porch, terrace or such. And it would be a little bit of a different story.
Even if it were attached to the house?
Absolutely. It's planting area. And as long as there's no, patio.
No, I mean,
within
even if it was a second story attached to the house. I don't know. Okay.
And this, I mean.
No one would build that.
I guess they
I mean,
probably
this-
would.
this- the green off also is really not,
You have a
I
little
wouldn't call it
cutting,
attached to the
green
house.
up
It's
there
No, in
outside
this
your
case,
bedroom.
yeah, it's not attached to the house. It's
Mm.
covering a storage structure, but it's
Yes.
not attached to the house.
So if it covered a garage,
Right. Right.
it would not, and the garage could be bigger, let's say, than normal, that would be allowed. I don't know how big a garage can be, but
It's also quite a bit lower than the grade of the driveway and the entrance to the house too. So it's really more, there's many different levels on the property, but it's really more at the lawn or yard level, if you will.
So what does the number look like now?
Excuse me?
What's the percentage look like now that we're redesigning?
I think it would be, because I'm looking at my numbers.
I was gonna ask you to figure that out.
We had 2,006. 620 square feet. Out of the, well, I mean, I'd have to look to see what the total is, but that'll be the addition. So instead of 2621, it'll be roughly 620 square feet.
And how does that affect the 80, the original 80%?
80%.
I want to get my
80%.
calculator out.
I said, David, I was gonna put that in your hands.
So that's 1678, so it's 620 divided by 1678, I think. 37%.
What?
37% instead of 80.
You agree with that, John?
37% over or 37% total?
It's 37% greater than
25%.
25%.
yeah, it's because what's permitted is 1,678. But that, again, that's for the property.
Mhm.
So anything we do over right now is over that number.
Right.
Because it's already there.
It's already there.
non-conforming, right?
Correct.
Dave, the first floor living area of the house is footprint ground floor, 6715. Right?
Yeah, and so the 25% of that
Okay,
is 1678.
gotcha.
I assume that does not include the pool. and
Correct.
HVAC.
We took that out.
Well, they
Yeah.
took that out. They took that out. So basically doing what we're doing, we're taking it from 81% to 37%.
Yes, yes.
So what's permissible is 25% and you're at 37%. And the difference is,
37% over.
Yeah, we're 37%.
so it's not
over.
that.
Correct, it's 37% over.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
again, if we do 1 square foot now, it's already over because it's
Mm-hmm.
non-conforming.
Yeah, but if you were smaller percentage over, I mean, how much of a percentage over are you already? Let me ask that question. Like if, you're.
I think the chart might say that.
Well, this is only 621 square feet that we would be potentially adding, so most of that would be
Was
existing.
already.
Yeah,
It's already existing.
Yeah, the pre-2021 terrace area was 8,684 square feet. That's on the chart. Yeah.
Elise, do we need to open the meeting to the public if there's public here? I mean, which is a continuation, so we can just open it, correct?
Yes.
It is a continuation. All right, I open the meeting
Well,
to.
actually, it was published for tonight as the public hearing.
Right,
But it
So-
says it's continuation.
it's a continuation.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak, either here or online? No? If that's the case, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Board discussion. I mean, my sense of the thing is that, we've asked the applicant to make changes to their application. I think they've done that and, especially with the additional modifications here. I'm comfortable with this at this point in time. Dave?
Yeah, I think making more of the roof green, I think that certainly helps because it was certainly a large variance you're asking for and already still, you're already have been over, but I think making the structure green as far as the roof is concerned certainly helps.
So you do want to go through the 5 factors?
Yes, no, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they'd come before it was built, but we are where
It
we
is what
are.
it is, what it
Uh,
is.
So, I mean, I want to consider the 5 factors, but I'm okay with that also.
Let's do the 5 factors.
Do the 5 factors.
Why don't we just do 5 factors?
Yeah, the character of the neighborhood.
Oh, and are we doing both or are we just considering the deck variance?
Well, you'll have to do an interpretation
Right. So shall-
before, yeah, you should do that.
Why don't we start with the deck first, right?
Is the interpretation. of-
Interpretation? Yeah. Okay.
You do the interpretation first, so discuss that and.
I mean, John, I didn't want to, if you thought it was a driveway, I would love to hear your perspective on this.
You know, I really had no other choice. I've never seen a structure built like this that wouldn't be some type of driveway,
Right.
even if it was just for construction activity or temporary. But I'd rather the board make that decision. If you don't think it's a driveway, I'm not offended. So, but I had to call it something.
Absolutely.
It's too large
Yeah, yeah,
and just to leave it out there that, okay, it's really
No,
not
it was
nothing.
absolutely perfect. It
Yeah.
was very appropriate to bring it to the board.
So I don't have any real strong opinion if the board doesn't, if they feel it's not a driveway. But just be careful of the precedent as we discussed earlier.
So it's not gonna be used for passenger vehicles, right? If it's clearly protected from passenger vehicles going on, it can only be used by commercial vehicles that can navigate that grade. I'm sort of asking the question, confidence that the barrier can do that. And then I'm okay with it being in a path, but if there's any way someone could take a vehicle down there that's not supposed to go down there, then it's, it is a driveway.
And I'll work with the applicant to make sure that we provide some barrier at the top that's, acceptable to the board and also to him in terms of, keeping unauthorized vehicles from using the driveway, but we'd have some sort of barrier at the top with a sign, construction vehicles only.
We had informally discussed maybe 2 removable bollards that would presumably have a lock of some type and could only be removed by the workers who would actually use the pathway.
Yeah, I think that would basically, as far as the interpretation of what it is, that is part of the interpretation.
Sure.
That this will be blocked off and will be for construction vehicles only.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, how would we handle that in our decision, please?
You'll make the determination that it's not a driveway and then you'll list why. And you'll also condition it on, like, for example, the bollards or some sort of structure at the top. Okay, so for example, you noted earlier that it's not open to the road. It doesn't end at the house. I forget what else you talked about. I'm sure there were other things.
There's an existing driveway that is in use and has been in use. It does not end at a road, right? You said that.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's actually a different material too, so visually, not that would stop anyone by itself, but there's a clear line between the driveway, which is a much lighter stone, and the pathway, which is a darker item 3 type material.
I assume would they have to get that approved by the BAR, whatever?
It should be on the plan that the bar looks at.
Do you want bollards or do you want some sort of, chain or something, or do you care?
I would think that a removable bollard would probably be the best method.
And I guess before I nod my head.
And obviously you've already kind of talked about
Yeah.
that, and I think that the removable bollard would be the way to go.
Okay. Okay.
So then we don't need that as a variance if we make conditions on the path.
That's correct. So you would take a vote on that. You would move and vote on the interpretation, and then you'd go on to the variance. Anything else that you could articulate that would help differentiate between like a path? I guess we could just add, I don't know, internal to the property. Hey, John, can you think of anything else? Just so if you ever encounter anything like this again, you'll have some guidelines. Width or anything?
Has to be some sort of semi-permanent impediment to vehicular traffic, right?
Oh, that's the.
the bollard.
removable
No,
bollard.
but that's what,
Or in
that's what we
general.
need
In
to,
general.
that's what we need to
No,
articulate.
I think the bollards with the chain possibly is the best way to do it. But I
Do you
don't
want
know.
to say it can be no wider than a driveway? I mean, do you want to kind of set any kind of width? I mean, if it's a path or it's not a driveway, then arguably you could make it.
Still needs support vehicles though. So there's certain width that has to be.
Mhm.
But look at what the definition of driveway is and describe this as. I mean,
There is no definition of driveway.
Well,
Unfortunately.
John was talking
there's-
about the width
there's
being 8 feet or
specifications.
greater. You know, just if we're doing this on the cuff like this, there's at least some reference point here.
Yeah, why don't you look at those?
Yeah, I mean, the driveway shall be no wider than 14 and no narrower than 8 feet. Shall enter the lot at such location and angle as to provide a safe slope and proper sight distance. No closer than 10 feet to an adjacent property line or intersection.
Yeah, none of that really
None of that really
applies.
goes. That's why we were focusing on a
Mhm.
structure to prevent people from accidentally
Mhm.
continuing.
How wide is your path?
It's 12 feet wide.
12 feet.
I think the problem with differentiating between a driveway and a path, you take a path and you widen it, it becomes a field. A flat field can certainly be driven over by a vehicle for maintenance purposes, landscapers will be
Here.
using those all the time, correct? But I mean, in terms of a definition of a path and a driveway, driveway, I think is clear. It's intended for vehicular access. For,
But this is a
You-
path
this
that
is
is
your-
not, that is
This is
intended
a-
for.
Basically, it's a construction
Certain
right
types.
away.
Yeah. certainly a path. I'm just saying in terms of like a maximum, if you say what's the maximum width. If it's a
Yeah,
grass path,
I
it's-
think we've already articulated.
field.
I mean,
What?
to me, with what we've already articulated, I
Right.
think it's very be easier in the future to define what's a driveway and what's not.
I just think of a precedent, bollards, but no chain. We could put multiple bollards, but the chain is not gonna look as nice. It'd be this other way.
Multiple removable bollards are fine, okay, as long as the cart, as long as a vehicle cannot go past that point. So, like I said, I read, that's why a removable bollard.
Yeah. I think that we could definitely make that work. Thank you.
No, I don't have anything else. Sorry.
Okay, so you'll want to motion to interpret this as not a driveway, and I'll draft up the.
Okay, yes, I'd like to make a motion to not classify this as a driveway, but classify it as a path for construction vehicles.
So vote. Second.
Favor?
So, everyone voted aye?
Yes.
Yes. Voted aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, you want to go through the 5 factors then on the variance for the deck?
Okay. Whether granting the requested variances would produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood character.
I don't really, the way this property situates and, the fact that this was sets down low, I don't really see where it would affect change or depreciate property and values.
And I actually think a green roof instead of just like a bare roof would actually improve rather than it'd be better than just a bare roof.
The bare roof would have then been analyzed as
A deck.
a deck, and you could say it's 80% and who's voting for 80% of a variance on something here? That's a lot. This is still a lot, but
Right, but it's
It's
not
kind of one of
80%
those
now, it's
arguments.
37%.
right.
I don't think it's detriment to the neighborhood.
Can you see it from the road? Can you see it?
No.
Okay,
Not visible.
I
No,
didn't think, okay.
didn't one of the neighbors complain, who shall be nameless? She lives up. And
As far as
Up Crow's
visibility,
Nest.
as far as visibility, it's not clearly visible from the road, not at all. And I would, almost swear to say, once it's planted, you probably would not really see it at all.
I think the fact that there used to be, I think, building supplies more visible, that they built the storage structure so that those could be
Yeah.
removed, actually was in response to neighbors
Yeah.
worried about them.
And that was pretty unattractive, I guess, with tarps and.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it is a, it is a well architecturally satisfying structure as opposed to what was there before. All right. Could whether the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance? Well, in this particular case, since it was already built, it's kind of difficult.
You made me do it.
This isn't funny, though.
No, I know.
Don't do that again.
Could there have been another method though, to store all this? I mean, you could say, you could address. You can say in your resolution that the board notes that this was already built, which is not the proper procedure.
Right.
And,
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Yeah.
okay, I can add that to them.
He also could have had a pitched roof and we wouldn't have called it a deck. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't have needed any variance.
Which would look uglier.
Probably uglier, at least from the applicant's perspective, they would look at it more than the public.
Okay.
So,
Okay, is it substantial?
Well, 37% is somewhat substantial. I think we probably have in the past granted more than 30% on a deck.
Have we?
Yeah,
I don't keep a running total, I don't know.
Right.
It's possible.
I remember
but
there was one that was more than that. But it is still substantial.
Which one was that? Do you
I
mind?
don't remember offhand. I mean, we go through a lot of them, but
I do
Maybe
recall
the one,
yeah.
substantial variance at the time.
Oh.
I think the thing is that it was a small house.
Yeah, I actually think I was the applicant. A house that was never built on the WeWa, and because of the footprint, the house had to be quite.
But there was
small, and
there was
so we
another
had to
one,
have a
there
bigger
was
deck,
another
so
one we
it was
approved. The house was really small.
Yeah, and we got it approved.
And I think they
Never
did
built.
a hot tub deck outside. All right, that wound up being more than 37%. So it has happened.
And the 37%, is that increasing from what is allowed? Or is it increasing? How much is it actually increasing the nonconformity? Not that that's really important, but
I
the
think-
37% is increasing from what is allowed. I just want to make sure I understand that.
no, I think it's.
Yeah, what's the question again? I'm
I
sorry.
think it's
There's so
a-
many numbers here.
variance to allow for the construction or continuation of a terrace that's 30% more than what's allowed, but not taking into account what's existing. I don't know, we'd have to,
That's not,
It's
what is
What is
The
the
total
variance from what's allowed?
overage? Yeah, how much
You're already
above?
not
from the
25%.
25%.
So I just want to understand, is it 57% from what's allowed and 37% over what's there? That's
Well, I guess the question is what's allowed? I mean,
25%.
25%.
5%. And now we're already over that, I guess is the problem. So is the question, what is the addition in relation to what's already there that's non-conforming?
so yeah, I think we have to take the pre-2021 I believe it is, number, add the 621
21.
square feet to that, and then calculate that against the 16.
So we can do that. Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah, I think I'd like that because what I'd like to say is, okay, it's already some percentage over. Let's say it's 20% over, and now this is gonna add another 10%. I'm just making these numbers up. So I'd like to reflect that in the resolution, just so it's accurate. So what I don't want is to make it look like the board granted a 37% variance when they granted a 10% variance over what was already there, but I do want it to be documented in the resolution. You see what I'm saying?
We should also have the square footage in addition to the percentage, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think, if I understood we took the pre-2021 terrace area is 8,684 square feet.
8,684 square feet.
Right, and we're gonna add to that 621. And that totals 9,305.
Mm-hmm.
And that in relation to the 1,678 square feet, which is the 25% of the ground floor area of the primary structure,
1,600 and what?
78,
Uh-huh.
and you're left with 5.54. So in terms of percentage, I think that means you're 554%. It's 554% of the permitted amount. So the over amount is you'd have to take the 9,305 and subtract out the 678 and then divide that, right?
Oh my God, this is
No.
way, I don't.
Minus 1678, and then divide that by the 1678. It would be 454% over
Permitted.
what's permitted.
Yes.
25%. I think that's what we're.
Okay, but the 600, okay.
So that's our permitted. I think you already said it with the 621, what percentage that is over what's existing.
That was the
8% or something.
over what's existing currently.
Yeah,
So it's going to be 621 divided by the total of 620. What was it? 621 plus 8684. Oh no, 621 is, you want to know what it is, a percentage of what's currently there.
yeah.
86,
Less than
84,
10%.
Yeah.
86, 84.
The
Yeah,
addition of
7%, 7.1%.
7%.
So this is 7% of beyond what it is, beyond existing.
There's a-
How did it get to be so big? No, I'm just curious, like, did you come in for a variance before?
This was part of the
Original house. Okay, so this overage was there. It was pre-existing? Okay, that's important.
Yes.
Okay.
And how'd you get a variance for it? Such a
It was
huge
there.
variance.
It was pre-existing.
Pre-existing.
No, but they
this
built
was-
it.
No,
They
they
must
built
have.
it.
This was raw land built into a house.
How could it be pre-existing?
So this was the ask that was granted during the initial
The
review.
variance was cited at the time. I don't know if the slate terraces existed at the time or not, or if they were just raised. I don't know.
So somehow they built the house with this variance that was that much, or with the patio that was that much over. Okay, well, all right.
It was a different zoning board.
Well,
I never went to the zoning
Went to
board.
the-
Never went to the zoning board.
So it was the architectural review board.
It's only one board at the time.
Ah,
Well,
Okay,
there was always a zoning board.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Just didn't go there.
ARB did not send it to the zoning board for a variance. Was the code the same back then?
Yeah, this section of the code hasn't changed. 25% hasn't changed.
Okay, so I think the way we should do this is we should cite it as a 7% increase, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you're basically granting a huge variance
yes.
for that becomes like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So if you grant a whole variance now, you're really you're grandfathering a variance that was never issued.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know that you want to put that in here.
I don't disagree.
Okay, so it's a 7% increase
Right.
over a pre-existing non-conforming
Yes.
deck. Okay, and then that, I think that that's a fair and accurate way to represent it. But then it's probably not substantial. I mean.
Well, the increase is not substantial.
Right.
The increase
Increase
is not
is not
substantial.
substantial.
The increase
That
is
is-
not substantial.
That
No.
is fair.
Okay, all right.
And it's been.
Thank you, Elise. I think it's a
Yeah,
good way, it's a good way to handle it.
I just, you want to make sure that your numbers hold up as complicated as they are, and I'm not an engineer and I'm not even very good at math, which is why I
I
went
was
to law
relying on
school.
you. All right. I don't have my calculator in front of me. You do it on your phone. Whether-
Okay, it's not substantial then.
Then it is not substantial. If it's 7%, it's not substantial.
No. And then the next is, will the variance, if granted, have a significant adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district?
I don't know. If anything, it's improving what the existing condition was.
Anybody else? Okay, and then finally, is it self-created?
Yes.
Do you want me to point to the procedural?
Yeah.
Although, I mean, to me, it's when you decide to build the storage area there, right, you're gonna have to do something with the top of the storage area. Right, and so to some degree, the storage area was beneficial to the neighborhood. And then once you've decided to build that structure, you have to figure out what you're gonna do with the top of it, and you could make it a peak roof, which would,
Then you
Not look great.
wouldn't, when you wouldn't have been here if you
Right.
made it a peak.
but that would
Right.
not look great.
Well, that's for
So-
the bar to decide. Or at least it used to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's still self-created. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's still self-created.
not everyone needs a storage area, right? Could store it somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Another question, though. If a future application for fear of setting any kind of precedent or just a comfort to come and make such asks, we're granting a variance, and if it would have happened before, we would have been in a really tricky and awkward spot to be granting so much. But say there's an applicant that gets a 5% variance, and then comes back and asks for a 20%, and comes back and asks for a 10%. It accumulates, and would you read that? You would count all of the percentages and say, you're asking for a 400% increase.
I think during your deliberations, you would take that into account.
Mm.
And you could arguably say that, I mean, it would be up to the board, and it would depend on a lot of things, right? So, but typically, what I've seen is if people come back and come back and come back, it's usually not that sequential. It's someone gets a variance, then somebody else buys the house 5 years later, 10 years later, who knows? And then they come in for another variance. And I think the boards, consider it at that time, because at that time you have maybe lots of people have been coming in for variances because people are building bigger houses, or they're using their outdoors more. And so they want these variances. So it would be taken into account by this board. I would suggest that you take that into account. And I would certainly suggest that if it's someone who comes back every other year and wants another variance, I think that's a reason to perhaps not grant the variance. But how often would that happen if someone is doing work on their house? I don't think, Well, I don't know. I'm not even gonna say that.
That 25% sits there and it is a completely useless reference point at that point.
Well,
It becomes 400, 500%
yeah, well, I think
overage.
also too is that, I think one of the things that I know they're looking at the zoning code right now, and I think the 25% on deck coverage is being looked at. All right, because that has actually been a large percentage of the variances that we have granted. I mean, people are living more outside, right? So it's just becomes part of what happens.
Yeah, I've
Life
noticed
has
since I've
changed.
been the attorney, that's really been what people have been coming in for. They want to build outdoor areas and, you know, they need variances to do that. But that's something the village board can address. And certainly this board would, in fact, and should. I mean, you did tonight, right? We did get to that. Well, it's 450% or whatever. So it's not that you're not aware of it.
I would assume that the board is ready to take a vote.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye, okay.
Thank you
All right,
very
thank you.
much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a great night.
All right.
And I don't plan to come back anytime soon.
Can't come back.
And like in our deliberation, we will, put something in along the lines of, that you shouldn't have done what you did. All right, you put something very awkward. But,
Understood. And you're right.
I know, I'm gonna fun.
It's okay. She didn't like the equipment sitting in the front with tarps on it. Thank you again. all.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
very good
Nice to
night.
meet
everyone. Thank you for your time.
We
I'll
do
draft.
have,
What?
we do have minutes if you want to review them
Yes.
before we close the meeting.
Which one?
was the July 2nd.
Desiree, can you,
July 2nd.
July the 2nd.
Honestly, I did not read, or I know there was a number of,
Sorry.
sorry,
I know there were a number of changes, and I honestly, there were enough to the point where I'd like to listen to the meeting and see what those changes are before voting on those minutes.
Although I think this one was the later meeting, right? Or the minutes that I read did not cover the.
I don't know
This was
what
last
applicants were on the
meeting,
agenda.
right?
Your
It was
last
the
meeting's
last.
minutes. And
I
we did a lot of
I
email
haven't read
exchange.
I read the initial one, I didn't read all the changes in there, and I'd like to read those.
You did maybe.
I'd like to hold off on that, although
You
we do. want to
recommended
go-
a sound test should be done.
Okay, that one, oh,
You want me to
I guess I looked at the
resend?
That's
wrong
the
file.
most-
I had one that
That's
was,
the most recent one.
yeah, I guess I was looking at.
You wanna do that?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
So then you'll need a, well,
Go ahead, make a motion.
we'll need a motion to go into executive session.
I would like to make a motion to go in executive session.
All in favor?
Go to executive session.
Oh,
Okay.
Didn't know we were going to. Yeah.
Have you here.
Okay.
Okay.
And actually,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey,
Yeah, don't go too
don't
far.
drive away.
Sorry, guys.
Close the meeting.
Goodbye.
All right.
second,
All in
All in
favor?
favor? Aye.
Thank you. How do you like your car?